Hey guys, it's Zach here, and today we're checking out Vinegar Syndrome's 4K UHD and Blu-ray release of The Invisible Maniac. Written and directed by Adam Rifkin, and originally released in 1990 during the direct-to-video craze, The Invisible Maniac is a hilarious and gruesome B-movie romp. It's an exploitation film featuring sci-fi, horror, and comedy all rolled into one guilty pleasure package. Today, Vinegar Syndrome presents the film newly restored in 4K with HDR, alongside a delightfully indulgent physical packaging as expected from the label, and a generous amount of supplements to further the film. Before we get to unboxing our release, let's talk a bit about the movie itself. The film opens up by introducing us to a young Kevin Dornwinkle. He's a boy genius with a bright future, but he also has a bit of a perversion problem. As a result, his mother locks him away in his room for years so that he might pursue science and science only. So we jump 20 years later into the future, where Kevin is now an adult scientist, played by Noel Peters. He studies molecular reorganization, but it seems he has a low reputation within the science community. Today, however, he claims to have finally reached the ultimate goal in his years of research: invisibility. However, it ends up being just another fluke, as Kevin ends up the laughingstock once more. Outraged by the failure and ridicule, he loses control, murdering 4 of the scientists before being captured and committed to a hospital for the criminally insane. In a quick turn of events, he soon escapes the hospital, running off and adopting the new name of Dr. Kevin Smith. He takes up a summer school job as a physics professor for a small class of delinquent high schoolers. The school itself is a blank slate, populated with stereotypical high school teens, alongside 2 other school staff members, a janitor and a principal. Of course, Kevin is still as awkward and perverted as ever, continuing his voyeuristic ways within the halls of the school, and becoming another target for the students' incessant bullying. Nevertheless, science marches on as the downtrodden professor continues his molecular research at home. This is where we finally get to the meat of the movie, as there's a long build-up but an absolutely wild payoff. Kevin does eventually complete his invisibility serum, and as expected from the creepy teacher, he begins to use his formula right away for deviant purposes. However, it seems the invisibility serum not only renders him invisible, but it also brings out the most repressed emotions and desires that have slowly bubbled up over the course of the film. It's no surprise when Kevin finally snaps, locking down the school and entering a murderous frenzy as the third act of the movie indulges us with non-stop invisibility antics and creative kills. So, what do I think of the film overall? Well, The Invisible Maniac is absolute schlock, filled with gratuitous nudity, grungy gore, and cheesy writing. However, if you're like me and enjoy this sort of B-movie trash, The Invisible Maniac delivers everything you want and more, as it goes all out in the creativity department, considering the low budget and short time frame they had to produce the movie. Kevin Dornwinkle / Dr. Smith is another emotionally abused mad scientist character reminiscent of Herbert West from Reanimator, or heck, even the OG Dr. Frankenstein. He's outwardly awkward, but when enraged, becomes this cackling madman who seems to truly enjoy the horrors he's committing. The film definitely wants you to root for the killer, however, as they make the rest of the cast insufferably selfish and mean, or hilariously strange one-note caricatures. The students are absolute bullies to the professor, making the final killing spree feel more like a payoff, especially after the first 2 acts drag a bit with the shock, taking the time to set up our lead character and his view of the world. As for the other school staff members, there's a mute janitor who's used for awkward comic relief, and a school principal whose character is entirely used for sexploitation. Regardless, I really enjoyed the self-aware feel of the film, as it really gives in to the cheesy side of exploitation. The score is great, switching between all sorts of styles and moods, like orchestral, synth pop, and even some hard rock. On top of that, the clever editing and creative use of special effects makes for a very memorable set of kills, which all hold this sort of insanely fun horror comedy feel. Check the film out for yourself, and let me know what you think down in the comments. The Invisible Maniac isn't for everyone, but fans of this sort of cult cinema will find a delightfully invisible treat in this release. Speaking of, we've got a physical copy of the film to check out. So without further to say, let's head on over and unbox our release. here we are with Vinegar Syndrome's 4K UHD release of The Invisible Maniac. I have here the limited slipcover version, featuring newly commissioned artwork on the front and back by artist Robert Sam Ellen. There was also a lenticular version of the slipcover that was only available back in April 2022 for April Fool's Day, under the guise of being an invisible slipcover. Removing our slip, we have a black 4K Blu-ray case with all of the release information printed on the back. If we open it up, there's two discs. One is a 4K UHD disc containing the main feature by itself, and the other is a standard Blu-ray disc containing the movie as well as the additional supplements and bonus features. Finally, we can note that the sleeve for our case is reversible, featuring an insanely over-the-top original poster work for the film on the other side. With that, however, we fully covered the physical aspects of this release, so let's head on over and check out what all is included on the discs. The Invisible Maniac is presented in 4K HDR, newly restored from the 35mm original camera negative. The film brings with it the original mono soundtrack, as well as two different commentary tracks for those rewatches. The first commentary track features writer and director Adam Rifkin, alongside moderator and filmmaker Elijah Drenner, while the second track features members of podcast The Hysteria Continues. It's always great to have multiple commentary tracks on a release, especially with the differences between watching alongside the writer-director versus watching the film with some serious slasher fans. With the feature presentation aside, we have a nice collection of video bonus features to check out as well. Starting us off strong with the best inclusion on the disc after the movie itself is a making-of documentary titled Fast, Cheap, and Out of Sight. Running 32 minutes long, this mini-doc features several guests, including writer and director Adam Rifkin, executive producer Cassian Elwes, co-stars Rod Schweitzer, Deborah Lamb, and Stephanie Blake, crew member Dan Povenmire, and finally, composer Mark David Decker. It seems the entire cast and crew went into this production knowing it was just going to be goofy fun and not necessarily high art. But because of this, the passion in the filmmaking and these interviews really comes out. Each cast and crew member talks about their roles on and off set, sharing stories and memories from the production. Of course, it's always great to have the director on board, especially as Rifkin shares all about his early passions in filmmaking when he was growing up, and how he eventually got started in the industry. The Invisible Maniac in particular was actually a product of Rifkin and Elwes being broke and needing some quick money, while gaining some experience on top of that before Rifkin's first major production to come, The Dark Backwards. So the two threw together The Invisible Maniac as quickly as possible, sharing here all the little stories and tricks they used to get through production as cheaply and as fastly as they could. Rifkin also talks about the releasing of the movie and dealing with all the various distribution challenges and excitements within the home video market, which was booming in the 80s and 90s. Overall, this was a great documentary with a ton of cool info and stories. It definitely builds a newfound appreciation for the film, and I definitely recommend it for anyone who enjoyed The Invisible Maniac even slightly. From here on out, we move on to our shorter supplements and bonus features, starting off with a 13-minute additional scene for the film that has a pretty strange backstory. A particular territory demanded the film be 13 minutes longer than its original runtime, so the director took one day and $5,000 to shoot those 13 minutes of additional footage in the form of an extensive dream sequence. It's chock full of nudity, horrors, and bizarre imagery. A pretty strange and fun inclusion to say the least. After that, we have a 12-minute archival interview with director Adam Rifkin, appearing on the public access television series Request Video, under the guise of his character and director pseudonym Riff Coogan. This interview is actually pretty funny. With its low-quality atmosphere, awkward comedy, and advertisement inclusions, it made me feel like I was watching something from the Tim and Eric Show. Finally, we can round out the release with a handful of shorter supplements, including an original video trailer for The Invisible Maniac, which, hilariously enough, uses the theme song from Beetlejuice, a music video for the film's own theme song, He's Invisible, and finally, a 10-minute behind-the-scenes compilation from that very music video production. With that, however, we've completed our look at the video supplements and this release as a whole of The Invisible Maniac. It's been another wild ride from Vinegar Syndrome, and I had a blast watching this one. The screwball mix of exploitation, horror, sci-fi, and comedy is just too much fun. Let me know what you think of the film and this Blu-ray release down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe to support the channel. Until then, thanks so much for joining me here once more on Pajama Theater. As always, thanks again, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.